Mike, the next question that I have, the people want to know, why did we choose such a small van?
Our names are Mike and Heather. We're traveling the US in our van Appa on a mission to visit all 50 states. Subscribe and join us as we try to figure out this whole van life thing. Thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, welcome again to our living room. We are getting ready to start packing up everything and loading up Appa. This one's just going to be a short trip, just about a week long, but we figured because we recently hit 1,000 subscribers and because we've had so many new subscribers to the channel, we thought it would be a good opportunity to do a sort of Q&A session while we're packing and while we're loading.
We really just wanted to take this opportunity for you all to get to know us a little bit better and also pack up all of our stuff.
To start off, one of the questions that we've gotten a lot and is kind of a good starting place because we are in our apartment is what is our current housing situation and what is our plan for housing moving forward as we do van life a little bit more continuously.
We do rent the apartment that we're currently in. We've been here for about 4 years and we are planning on keeping the apartment for now. Our ultimate goal is to be digital nomads and traveling and working, but right now in the transition period, we are planning on keeping our apartment here. The way or reason why we can do that is because we both are going to be working full time.
Moving on from that though, our remote work is something that is still fairly new for both of us.
We have gotten a question, what have we done previously that would allow us to kind of have remote work skills, I guess, and what are our new jobs? So we'll start with where we've been previously.
I actually used to work in a museum. I went to graduate school for museum studies and worked with artifacts in a museum. So what I'm currently doing is just sort of basic data entry. So really not anything too exciting, really just a basic entry-level data entry position. But the goal with that was just to have some form of income that was doable to have as a work job on the road. Really, for me, it was just finding something to be able to work remotely, and that was sort of the big goal. And then in addition to that, just as a way to kind of continue staying on with museum activities and to also earn a little bit extra, I am also doing some consulting work with different nonprofit museums and stuff like that. Again, not anything too intensive. For me, it was more continuing to have a job to bring in some income and just being able to work.
Yes. In college, I actually was political science, so something a lot less fun than Mike's major. So I started off in the county working in their career centers and actually moved up to the state career center. So in my career center job, I really helped people who are collecting unemployment benefits with their resumes, looking for jobs, cover letters, all of that good stuff. I promise that I was not the person in charge of money and distributing all of it. That's unemployment, a completely different office. Just wanted to throw out that disclaimer because I know how messed up that whole system was during the pandemic. I worked on the re-employment side of things and helping people through that program. Over the last year with the pandemic, they did transition us to work from home. So I was able to get more of the data entry, the customer service, even a little bit of the call center type of skills and abilities, which have really helped me spruce up my own resume, I guess, and made me more marketable. I was able to transfer a lot of those skills that I gained in that 1.5 to 2 years where we were working remotely at the state into a permanent work from home remote job, still within the government, just in a different office, in a different capacity. But what I'm really going to be doing is just basically being a call center worker and taking in people who are applying to different government programs and really just answering the call and helping them fill out forms. So it's not anything glamorous or anything like that, but it's going to allow us to travel. And I think we both were really open to just finding anything that we could in order to make this digital nomad life attainable for us.
Both Heather and I did really enjoy the jobs that we were in. I think it was a difficult decision and there was a lot of anxiety involved in leaving our jobs because they were both good positions. We had worked a number of years to be able to get into those jobs. But looking at how we saw our lives, we knew that transitioning to remote work and being able to travel more frequently was something that we were really passionate about and we wanted to prioritize that.
So the next question that we have as we're packing up our clothes here is, what are our travel plans?
So our first trip is something that we have been really excited about for the last couple months. We're actually going back to Disney World. If you've watched our Route 1 road trip, you'll know we had an opportunity to stop there for just one day. This time we'll be able to spend one day in each of the 4 parks, and the kind of cool thing is we're actually staying in the Fort Wilderness campsites. So we're going to be able to bring Appa in and stay out of our van while we're in Disney World, which is just really cool.
And just to carry off of that a little bit, So we were originally supposed to have a couple weeks off in January, but some personal things and family things came up and we weren't able to really do the loop that we wanted to do. We were actually gonna hit Alabama, Kentucky, and maybe even a little bit of Louisiana. But that just means that it's part of our 2022 plans, and we still had our reservations in Disney set, so we're still gonna be able to go there. And with Disney, as I'm sure everybody knows, it is incredibly expensive, but we kind of found a budget way to do it. So we're very excited to be able to go relatively affordably. Is affordably a word?
Affordably. Yeah.
Okay. Relatively affordably. Okay, now that sounds weird. Okay, we're gonna be able to go cheaper than we had originally thought it was going to be based off the time of year that we're going and some credit card points, and we'll get into all that later. Moral of the story is we're very excited to be able to go to Disney again, and that's going to be the start of our 2022 travels.
We've recently kind of been working through coming up with a sort of 2022 travel calendar. As we were kind of explaining a little bit before, we're planning on making what we're referring to as loops and doing states and visiting in groups so that we can kind of visit as many as we can on each kind of time out. But that's sort of how we're planning on traveling this year, making sure that we're actually getting time out on the road, having time to travel. And while we're working, it's going to be a little bit more kind of slow going because we're both going to be working remote jobs, so we're not going to be kind of out of the van and doing all of the different sightseeing things and tourist activities every day of the week. So we want to make sure that we have a lot more time to commit to being on the road.
Yeah.
And also, just as a disclaimer while we're packing, Heather and I are both notorious for being overpackers. So I'm sure we'll hear about it in the comments, but we do know that we are packing way more than we would need for a week out of our van. That's something we're working on. The packing cubes have been good because it sort of limits us in what we can bring. And if we have one for pants and one for shirts and we go over, that's kind of a sign that we need to tone it down a little bit. So that's something we're working on, rest assured.
Like I said, this is all a huge learning experience for us. We have no idea what we're doing, and we're just kind of documenting the process. Back to the questions. And the packing, because I've not been doing that very much. So the next question is, what are we most excited about / what are we most nervous about?
What I'm really excited about is being able to spend more time in different locations. We've done a couple of road trips and driving multiple hours a day, really never staying in the same place twice. So being able to actually be in an area and kind of experience what it's like there is really cool, I think, for me.
I definitely overpacked this cube. I would agree with everything that you just said. Most excited about, most nervous about, failing. Yeah, it's probably a little deep, but yeah, I guess like failing and it not working out.
I think that obviously there's a lot of nerves around going on the road and having such a big lifestyle change. I think one of the things that I am actually always anxious about being on the road is just having some form of car trouble and trying to figure that out as we go. We had a little bit of a taste of it in North Carolina when we couldn't get Appa to start. It ended up being like just some kind of fluky thing with the battery, and there was a fairly easy fix for it. But I think just being... Oh, that's cool. Thank you for throwing that in the middle of the video. Figuring out car trouble, especially as we start getting further and further away from home, and then having to figure that out, being stuck in one location.
These are made out of wood, and I'm just knocking on them for everything that we're saying at the current moment. Continuing off of the kind of plans questions that we have gotten as we're wrapping up packing. What is the favorite state that you've been to, and what is the state that you're most excited to go to?
So, favorite state that we've been to, I think it probably coincides with states that we've been able to spend more time in. So for me, Vermont was probably my favorite so far. Being there during the fall and driving Route 100, as well as being able to do a couple of really cool hikes, was awesome.
And what states are you most excited to go to? I think for us, Alaska. Just because it's so different than the lower 48.
I really like the idea of kind of places that we can have adventures in, so Alaska kind of tops the list for that.
If we had to pick one.
Yeah, Alaska.
All right, let's finish packing.
Okay.
Mike, the next question that I have, the people want to know, why did we choose such a small van?
So we've gotten this question a lot on YouTube. Our families have asked this question. Not only why we got this van, why didn't we get a bigger van? So this is a Ford Transit Connect 2013. The reason we went with this van specifically is because it was affordable. This one had under 100,000 miles. It was a 2013, which meant it had a taller ceiling, and we knew that we would be able to make all of it work. Yes, the back of the cargo area is only 6 feet, so we had to do some additional modifications. But for us, we knew that we wanted the maneuverability of a smaller vehicle, the gas mileage of a smaller vehicle, and most importantly, the cost of a smaller vehicle. So this one checked all of those boxes, and we're super happy with it. I mean, I think that there are other vans that maybe long-term could have worked better in different ways, but for us right now, this is exactly what we want.
So if we're being honest, the first kind of van that we were looking into were those really cool old Volkswagen ones. We quickly realized that those were way out of our price range. So then we're like, oh, okay, let's check out the Transit vans or the Sprinter vans. Again, quickly learned that those ones were way out of our price range. So we eventually, through the YouTube van life hole that you kind of go down, found some people doing Ford Transit Connects, and we're like, hey, that is gonna allow us to travel and do it relatively cheaply. We are not currently on our way down to Florida. We are actually on our way to Walmart to pick up some little things that we need, mostly groceries, because we are trying to do Disney as cheap as possible. But while we are on our way, we figured we'd take you along and answer another question that we keep getting. That one being, where are we from? So we actually grew up an hour south of Buffalo in a very small town. There's so many bumps right now.
Remember when I was saying how I was worried about car trouble on the way? Part of the problem is that whenever we go over a bump, there's rattling that comes from the back, and I'm not sure if it's from the vehicle or from the fact that we're really bad at packing.
I mean, it's definitely the poor organization at the current moment, because I threw a bunch of stuff back there and it's not where it needs to be, which is why we had everything petitioned off so great in our cabinet to avoid that. But yeah, I didn't put things back how they're supposed to be. We grew up in the same small town about an hour south of Buffalo, and we both went to college in downtown Buffalo, so that's why we say we're from Buffalo. And Buffalo is in New York, so in the United States, on the opposite side of the state as New York City, near Niagara Falls and Canada. That's where we're from.
So Tim Hortons, coffee, and and hockey and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's funny when we see like Tim Hortons as the intrinsically Canadian thing, because it's also very much a Buffalo thing. So it's just funny that, you know, in Canada it's all about Tim Hortons, but that's second nature for us here in Buffalo.
This is like Tim Hortons extra, but Tim Hortons was actually a Buffalo Sabre hockey player, and so that's kind of some obviously additional local connection to a very good coffee and donut chain. Yeah,
but that's why we can take ownership of Tim Hortons as well. I'm sure Canadians would be like, no. But I mean, we have a statue of Tim Hortons, so that counts for something.
So we're heading back to the house now to kind of wrap up all of the packing stuff that we have for tonight and get Appa all set to hit the road.
We do have a couple more questions on the list. The next one being, what is or who is Appa?
We refer to Appa a couple of times, whether we're traveling around in Appa, heading back to Appa, loading Appa, all of these different kind of ways of talking about what basically is our van.
Yes.
Appa is a character from a animated TV show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you look at our keychain, that is Appa a bunch of times.
Yes, we know. We're children, which actually segues perfectly into the next question that we have, which is, how old are we?
I am 29 and I'll be turning 30 this year in 2022.
That's actually a really scary thought. I am 27. I'd be curious to know if we are older or younger than you thought, but then I really don't want to know because I don't need that type of negativity in my life, so actually don't put that in the comments. But yeah, I'm 27 and he's 29 going on 100.
Probably the most important thing we got from Walmart for our trip is Dr. Pepper. This is not all that's going to be going on our trip with us, but this was the most important six-pack that we could possibly have. Heather has a mild to moderate caffeine addiction, and Dr. Pepper is her drink of choice.
So he's not wrong.
If you watched this far into the video, we thought we would leave maybe the most kind of like personal question for us to the end. Not personal as in, oh, it's a deep, dark secret, but more just like...
We don't know if anybody would actually care. Some people have cared because they left it in the comment section, but...
That question is, how did Heather and I meet? That's kind of a long story, but really the short end of it, or the short and sweet of it, is we grew up in the same town and we met each other in middle school when we were both on the cross country team. She always likes to laugh because I ended up quitting cross country a couple months later.
It was not months, it was a couple like practices later.
I
literally thought you hated me, but it's fine.
So we had met then, and it wasn't until we were both in high school that we ended up dating. We started dating back in 2009 and we've been together since. We went to college together and now we're together in van life, which is really a fantastic, exciting prospect.
Long story short, we met in middle school, started dating in high school, and then got married after college. So we are married.
Yeah, I think that kind of covers all of the sort of questions that we had gotten both about van life and...
At least the most common ones that we kept seeing pop up. And with that, I think our van is pretty much packed and ready to go for Disney. And I know some of you might roll your eyes and be like, Disney, come on, like that's so lame. And we know, but it's also pretty awesome. And we're very excited to go back, especially because we do get to do the lightsaber making thing. And by we, I mean Mike's really excited about that. We're most excited just to not be in cold weather though.
Yes.
Not gonna lie. The 75 degrees and sunny thing is very appealing to us at the current moment.
We've got all of our food packed, our clothes are packed and put away. I think we'll probably just double check everything to make sure that it's all squared away and where it needs to be. And we're going to be hitting the road really soon.
I know that this is kind of like a weird video of like just kind of us answering some questions. So if you do have any more questions that you'd like to know, please leave them down below. We'd be more than happy to answer them. And we just really appreciate you watching and kind of documenting our journey to becoming digital nomads and traveling and this whole transition period of seeing what it looks like to even get into that type of lifestyle. So thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the road.